Hi, my name is Jose Trejo Ramirez. I'm a former Blue Ridge Community College student, and I currently work for the Migrant Education Program. And today I have the privilege of interviewing Mr. Paul Cuadros. Mr. Paul Cuadros is a professor at UNC Chapel Hill. He's also an award-winning journalist and a book author. He's written for Time Magazine, the New York Times, and Salon.com, among others. And he wrote the book, A Home in the Field, which takes place in Siler City, North Carolina. So thank you for joining us, Mr. Cuadros. Can you tell us a little more about A Home in the Field?
Thank you, Jose, for inviting me here. A Home on the Field is a book about demographic change. It's a book about globalization, and it's a book about a high school soccer team in the South.
Great. I'd like to compare Siler City to Henderson County just because they have a big Latino population. Siler City, I believe, has a more stable, they come to Siler City, they settle down, they live there, whereas Henderson County is migrant every season. People come to the county during the summer, fall, and so it's people, our residents seem like they suffer like this change of, we're like being invaded. We have a lot of people coming in and then they go, sometimes they don't get it, but I feel like when we have this new community, they can't, a lot of them focus on the negative effects or the negative aspects of the newcomers. For example, here they would argue, we have more cars, so we have to invest more in security, things like that. How do you get a community to be more welcoming?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there are similarities between a community like Chatham County or Siler City and Hendersonville, and then there are stark differences too. So our Latino migration and settlement, and I think that's what we can call it at this point, is different in the sense that people from south of the border came to Chatham County and to Siler City to work in agribusiness, specifically in the poultry processing industry. But that's not seasonal work. That is full-time, year-round work. And so those people who came brought their families and have settled in that community. They have bought homes or they rent homes, and they live there year-round. Whereas here, what you're dealing with is a seasonal worker, temporary worker situation where people come and they work and they spend their money and they live here and then they go on to some other place. And some may stay, but the majority, I'm assuming, goes. And so one of the things that I've encountered in writing this book and in reporting in Siler City and in other places is this idea of the stranger. So when newcomers come into a community, they are in essence strangers to the longtime population. And so a lot of things have to happen for those people to sort of feel that the newcomers are less strangers and more known to them. But that's harder to do in a migrant community where the workers come seasonally and then leave, because you never get to know them that well, because then they go. Even though many workers, they come again to the same place year after year after year. The long-time population doesn't get a good chance to know those workers, to know those seasonal workers, because they come and they go. So it makes the situation more difficult to handle.
Okay. Yeah, there's definitely some differences, but some things in common. Also, with the newcomers or with Latinos or any other newcomers to the country, there's always that sense of that they have to adapt to the U.S. culture, learn the language, and somewhat leave behind what their parents were, what they probably were in person. And recently there have been some changes, not just in the U.S., but even Central America. They're trying to recover their culture, indigenous languages, for example. And here, a lot of Latinos probably still, and in the past, have tried to focus on English, try to adapt to the new culture so that they'll be accepted. Why do you think it's important for them to keep their culture, or is it important for them to keep their culture at all?
Yes, I would say that that's very true, that the newcomers who have come here from Mexico or Central America, it's very important that they maintain many of the traditions that they've had, both in language and their sense of being and who they are, their religion or their holidays. And that's very, very traditional for many other immigrant groups who have come to the United States in the past. Really what you're talking about is integration. And how does an immigrant population integrate today in the 21st century? It's going to be similar to how other populations have immigrated here and integrated into our society from the past, but it's also going to be a little bit different too. So those present, I think, unique challenges, but that's really what we're kind of focusing on, is this idea of integration. And A Home in the Field actually deals with a lot of that. So here you have a group of high school boys who are from Mexico or Central America who have come here, and it's a strange place, it's not their home, and they're trying to find a piece of their home. They're trying to fit into this new society. They're trying to fit into their school, and they find it very, very difficult to do. But playing on the team actually is a way for them to do that, because the greater society recognizes that and gives value to that. So really, I think, the book kind of deals with integration, but integration on your own terms. And I think that's fair. I think that's fair for immigrant groups to decide on their own terms how they're going to integrate in the U.S. It may be different from other groups in the past, but I think every sort of newcomer group gets to sort of determine that.
Okay. Yeah. Also, like you were talking about the soccer team in Salar City that you helped develop, and the high school that basically didn't have a soccer team goes from being no team to going far in the playoffs to winning state, which is very impressive for a team that, it's brand new to pretty much the environment of soccer teams. But sorry, how do students relate to, or how does the whole community relate to these students who are, like we are talking about newcomers, to a team that plays soccer, a sport that's definitely a huge part of the Latino culture, not as much of the U.S. culture. It is, the fastest growing sport in the U.S. Worldwide, is the most popular. How do you get the community involved in this small project, which is the soccer team at Salar City, to feel pride in them, to help them to feel that they're part of the community?
Mm-hmm. Well, by winning. That's one way to do it. All Americans love a winner. So, that's, and I knew that from the start. But I always knew that there was a championship team within that community that just had to be nurtured and helped along to be able to fulfill its destiny. But, I think once we started the program and were successful, that began to change a lot of people's minds about the boys and the community, because it was seen as a very positive thing. And so it began to cut away and contradict many of the stereotypes that I think people had about Latino youth, especially male youth, and provided a different narrative for them. Los Jets, as we call the team, is a winning program. So when you're on the team, the boys on the team know that they have to behave in a certain way, and they have to sort of maintain that tradition of being winners and winning. And it alters their behavior in some way. And it's one of the reasons why so many young men want to try out for the team and be a part of that program. And that's true for a lot of other programs at schools. When you have a winning tradition, people want to be a part of it, and people like that. So I think for the long time community in Siler City, it allowed them a chance to do two things. One, to recognize that these boys could be very successful, if you give them an even playing field. And two, that that they could identify with them, because in a small town, the high school is such a center of the culture in the town. So everybody's wearing the same colors, everybody has the same name, and so it allowed them to also identify with these boys.
Okay, and you were talking about, everybody loves a winner. The team goes at the first or second season playing with the Hendersonville Bearcats. You guys lose to them, but you guys still come back the next year. And I think, losing one time and coming back is not easy, not just in the sports field, but also in life. And I think Latinos definitely face a lot of this, fail, come back and try again, and try to knock down that wall. How do you build that mentality for example, for the players on the team that were still in the team when you guys lost in the first occasion and come back? How do you build that winning mentality?
Right. Well, the first game with the Bearcats, we had to travel 4 hours out here, and I think it was the first time many of the boys have been out west to western North Carolina. They'd never seen the mountains before. They didn't know they really existed. So for them, it was a real eye-opening experience. And then playing against the Bearcats in a hostile environment, so to speak, from the fans, that was also something that was very intense for them. And it was an extremely intense game. There was no question about it. And it was a very physical game. And the game ended like 1-0. So I think that the boys who were on the team remembered that game and kept it in their minds. And so when we played the Bearcats at our place, at our home, 2 years later, they were pumped up for that. And they wanted a chance to persevere and come back and show that they could beat that team.
Very well. Also, a lot of the students that you work with at Siler City, at the high school, they're definitely newcomers. They're first-generation immigrants, as many would label them. I consider myself a first-generation immigrant because I came to the U.S. from Mexico, where I came from Mexico. They probably came from different Central American countries or South America, and they have. It seems that they have like a different mentality than a second-generation immigrant, somebody that was born here. They have a couple different, they have different opportunities. A first generation possibly doesn't know the language right away, whereas a second generation would, have learned it since kindergarten. So what do you see are some of the differences or the similarities between these two groups?
Yeah, there are a lot of differences. So when we started the program, and what the Home in the Field focuses on would be that first generation. So many of the students had come, some of them in the elementary school age, some of them in middle school, and some of them even in high school. And depending upon the time that they came in their lives, really dictated and determined almost how they would perform in school for many of them. So the later that they came, like if they showed up in high school, their chances for graduating were diminished. If they came in middle school, they had a pretty decent chance of going through. If they came in elementary school, they had an even better chance. So there's a real struggle for the newcomers, depending on what age that they come into. The following generation, some people call them Generation 1.5. And these are the little brothers and sisters who were born here, but their big brothers and sisters were not. They're different. They haven't seen their parents' home country. This is the society that they understand and know very well. They straddle both worlds easily, I think, and they can achieve easily if they want to. So, they're different in that sense. The program, the soccer program at Jordan Matthews High School, that's something that the first generation wanted to create, and they fought for it. They wrote petitions for it. It's something that they wanted to have as a cultural touchstone. It's something that they do. It's part of who they are, the game. The 1.5 generation, the programs are always existed for them. They haven't had to struggle to achieve that. So they have a different attitude about the team. That doesn't mean that they want to win any less, but it's just a different attitude that they have. So, so there are differences. The second generation, so many of the boys, like on the cover of this book, they're already fathers, and that's the second generation. And those kids have been born here. Their parents have gone to high school or graduated from high school, or maybe even had a little college and have worked here and speak more English, better English, and have adapted to the society pretty well. They're going to be even more different than 1.5. They're going to be more ingrained into this society.
Okay, and you're also talking about, you know, how the earlier they come, the better off they would be, or the more likely they would be to be
More likely, yeah.
to be successful in middle school, high school, and graduate. And from my personal experience, it seems that in the Latino culture, college is yet, you know, it's yet to develop that popularity. It's not the most popular way to achieve success. Many students from my graduating class, maybe half of them, of Latinos, went on to college. The others didn't. They joined the workforce, and they are probably waiting for a chance to come up with a brilliant idea and, you know, and get rich from it, which I think everybody, you go to college or not, is always waiting for that. But why do you think there is such, or it's why college is not so popular, and how, and did you face it like in Siler City, you know, that mentality of, you know, I'll finish high school, but nothing more?
Right. Well, I mean, there are, for this community, there are various barriers to access to higher education. And so that can frustrate a lot of students. Whether those barriers are financial or whether those barriers have to deal with documentation, whether those barriers just have to deal with, I have to help my family. There are real barriers for the Latino community, for Latino youth to go on to higher education. And those who are able to achieve it have been able to do so because they're very, very determined to do so, and haven't allowed the barriers sort of to really kind of like take them down from their goals. For other Latino youth, I think sometimes that there is a lowering expectations as to what you can do, that there is a narrative for them to follow, like, you know, you're going to work. And you get that oftentimes in many families too, where work is valued over everything and education is valued less. And what's happening there is that in many of the families, they haven't really translated the idea here in the United States, which is that more education gets you more work and more compensation. So, so those are all real sort of forces at play within the family unit that can provide barriers for Latino youth to go on to higher education. One thing I've sort of noticed is that in subsequent generations who have been born here, they have less, we would say, ganas to go on to college. They have less of a desire to go on to college, and maybe even a more preponderance to drop out of high school. You know, you see Latino immigrant youth that drop out of high school because of financial reasons mostly, but you also see Latino youth who were born here or U.S. citizens and then drop out of high school and don't want to go to college too.
That is true. That I think probably not only for Latinos, but I think a lot of non-Latinos also have that. They might take a couple things for granted, and they go on, maybe finish high school, maybe not, and try a different path. But
Yes.
that's always interesting. Also, one of the things I think first generation, and we're talking about newcomers to comparing them to second generation or 1.5 as you called them, have always or seem to have a bigger desire to come to the U.S., work, make a better life. But a lot of them have that desire of when I age or I'll eventually return to my home country,
Mm.
because they love it. Do you think that they want to go to return because they don't feel welcome, or is their culture so strong that it definitely pulls them back and they miss it?
Well, that's a good question. I think, definitely there are feelings of alienation, that some people don't feel like they fit in, that they're never going to fit in, and they can't necessarily integrate into society. And so they always feel like, I feel out of place here. And some of that might be the prejudice that they encounter in society, and some of it might be from their own feeling. They may not speak the language very well, and they just feel out of sorts. And so, looking back at their youth, they were probably younger, it's sort of an idyllic way to say, well, things were always better back there, and I want to get back there. And then we have to remember that many people have come here. While they've chosen to come here, they've been compelled to come here, either through economic deprivation or natural disasters, or whatever reasons exist that force people to migrate. People don't really migrate unless they have to. So for many people, for like the first generation, they may have come here because they were sort of compelled or forced to. And returning home is sort of like, fighting against that.
Right, okay. Also, being newcomers is definitely hard for them, but also a couple others do settle down, and even though maybe when they were younger are thinking of returning, a lot of them stay. I think when you went to Tyler City, there's a Latino organization in the town. I think there's Latino organizations in many places, one in Henderson County. What do you think that these organizations help them feel more welcome and to just make them feel like it's their home or their new home?
Right, definitely. I think they provide a lot of services to the community that they need to integrate into the society. It's a difficult thing to move to a foreign country and try and find your way to into it. Unless you've done it in some way or seen it or experienced it, you don't realize how hard it really is. Some people think that, you can sort of come here and magically attain the language and attain the customs, and it just doesn't happen that way.
Right.
It takes time, and people are working, and it takes, it's a generational transition. It's not an immediate one. As much as some people may desire it to be so, it never is, and it never has been.
True. And so we're talking about, it's hard to adapt because our cultures maybe are so not so different, but definitely they're part of us. As you were born in the U.S., your family is originally from Peru. How did your culture help shape who you are now, or how did it help you, or shape?
Right.
Way?
I think, okay, so I'm like generation 1.5. You don't realize how much I think your family and the culture that your family sort of is, the language that it speaks, the faith that you have. You don't realize how much that influences you and defines your personality and who you are until you go back, and then you realize, wow, I'm a lot of who I am because of where my parents were from, and I didn't even know it. So you don't really know that until you see some sort of comparison to it. But we're all defined by our families in some way, and from where we're from, and it sticks to us, and it's part of who we are. So it's a significant thing.
Okay. Also, you went to Siler City, and you definitely touched on many lives. You created this team, and I'm sure you're probably a hero there. Um, or probably not only to Siler City, but you're
A
an
little one.
example. uh, but you changed lives. But did going to Siler City kind of change you in some way, or
Oh,
did
yeah.
it teach you something? Like,
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I've touched a lot of people's lives, but they touched me in very significant ways. So I found a real community, and I like it, and it's a lot of fun to be in, and it's comfortable. So it's been a back and forth kind of thing, in that sense. Um, the immigrants were looking for a home, and they found one, and I found one too.
great. Also, you're an award-winning journalist, book writer, soccer coach, UNC professor. What would be your advice, or what would you tell a Latino student that or maybe non-Latino as well, that is trying to follow someone's path of touching people and just changing people's lives and trying to improve communities?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to have a lot of perseverance. There are always going to be obstacles, and the thing that gets you what you want in life, I think, is that you have to be determined and have perseverance. And you'd be surprised that, I mean, there are lots of people that want to do things in life, and they never achieve them because they're either not stubborn enough or dumb enough to keep kind of going. And that's what you do. That's what makes somebody a success, is their ability to keep working and keep going for what they want.
Great. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. Anything else you want to add to this interview?
Well, thank you, Jose, for inviting me. I really appreciate it, and for talking about a home in the field. It's good to be back in Hendersonville. We hope to return here sometime and play again with the Jets. And, I think the issues here, which are sort of migrant community issues, one thing to remember is that the migrant community, the Latino community that comes here to provide an economic stimulus to the area. And, that's why they're here. And while some people may be frustrated with that, the idea is that they inject an economic stimulus into the economy for everybody.
Great. Well, again, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Zay.
Thank you for joining us in this interview with Mr. Paul Cuadros. We wish him the best, and hopefully we'll have him back next year or even sooner with the team or at the college. So thank you for joining us today. Again, my name is Jose Trejo Ramirez, and I will hopefully see you another time. Thank you.